I went to Harvard Medical School for a seminar, and I took questions from thousands of you. And some of those had to do with, how do you tell a difference between a flare of the disease and prednisone withdrawal? And that question stumped every single professor and rheumatologist I talked to. And I posted a video about this question, and several readers and viewers sent in some insightful ideas. So I wanted to share those with you, because if you ask your doctor, you might not get an answer. So let's talk about what the problem is here, what the controversy is, so that you understand why the doctors didn't know how to answer. And then I'm going to share the fantastic, insightful responses from several emailers. So I asked the professors, what's the difference between prednisone withdrawal and a flare? And the biggest problem with that question is that it assumed that all the doctors appreciated what prednisone withdrawal is. And I shouldn't have thought that, because I went to pharmacy school. I learned about prednisone. No one ever mentioned prednisone withdrawal to me. That was not a phrase I ever heard. And in fact, even when I first launched my career as the prednisone pharmacist, it was not something I appreciated either. And so there's a gap in medical education about the existence of prednisone withdrawal. Every doctor knows about opioid withdrawal from pain medications, or alcohol withdrawal, or benzodiazepine withdrawal from things like Xanax. These things that are well established and appreciated, but doctors don't appreciate the fact that, like all of those medications, your body creates a dependence on prednisone. You are artificially replacing cortisol. And when you withdraw that, it creates a withdrawal syndrome, pain and misery that I've described in further detail in many other videos. But somehow that isn't being taught, even though it's legitimate. There are medical articles, scientific, peer-reviewed articles all about this. It is a legitimate thing. It's just not appreciated by the doctors who aren't going through it. So that was the first problem, is that they don't appreciate it. And so then asking them, how do you tell the difference between it? They're like, there isn't withdrawal. It's just adrenal insufficiency. I'm like, no, it's not. Because adrenal insufficiency is the inability to make adrenal hormones. Everyone on prednisone has that. You've turned off that ability. Anyway, I'm not going to get into that rabbit hole. We're going to get to solutions now. So they don't appreciate the problem. Therefore, they haven't thought of the solution. Does that make sense now? But those of us who have thought about the problem, especially those of you who watched that video, did think of a solution. So I'm going to read the first one. This is from Dr. John Watkins. He said, I am a retired internist. If you don't know what that means he's a physician, a doctor, a medical doctor. And he did internal medicine, things like giving people prednisone. And he's suffering with PMR. It would seem to me that a way to differentiate PMR flare from prednisone withdrawal syndrome is by checking markers of inflammation, such as SED rate and CRP. Inflammation should be increased during a disease flare, but at baseline during withdrawal. Please correct me if I'm wrong. I love your emails and blog, JW. That was the first one. Here's the second one. Dear Dr. Megan, we watched your Harvard video. We are wondering if SED rate and C-reactive protein tests would distinguish between a PMR flare and prednisone withdrawal. What do you think? Your fans, Anne and Robert. So I think this, coming from two totally different groups, makes perfect sense to me, that the symptoms, what you personally feel, might be very similar. Pain, achiness, yucky feeling. But the way to tell, is it withdrawal or is it a flare, is to get a blood test. So you can't tell yourself. You have to have your doctor order a blood test, and it would be for those two markers, inflammation, CRP, which stands for C-reactive protein, and ESR, which is erythrocyte sedimentation rate. Both of these measure things that get bad in your blood. They're just markers, like, oh, a bomb went off. See the smoke? They're like the smoke. You can see the smoke because these are in your blood. So I think this makes perfect sense to me, that withdrawal, you should feel bad, but your blood should look good. Whereas a flare, you should feel yucky and your blood should show that you're feeling yucky because it's a flare. What do you all think? Any other rheumatologists out there willing to venture a guess who appreciates this distinction sufficiently? Let me know in the comments what your thoughts are. I love crowdsourcing problems so we can find solutions. And then if you have any other questions you want crowdsourced, you could also leave those in the comments. And if you want to watch the original video of all the things I learned at Harvard, just click this link and you'll see that video now. Signing off is Dr. Megan, your prednisone pharmacist.